you have people of all different backgrounds here who have different different skill sets. So feel free to fire away.
Your previous presentation, by the way, which was excellent on automating processes so that you can, make some money. When you do this for WordPress, do you do that in PHP?
It depends on what it is that I'm trying to do. A lot of the things that I presented last month were, by the way, if you want to see any of my notes from last month's presentation, wporlando.org. That's our plug. Most of the things that I tried showing off were other existing tools where I didn't need to write a lot of code. I found that for myself personally, that's a hindrance that I make for myself in that I enjoy writing code. Therefore I go, oh, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to write some code to do that. And then I fall down a rabbit hole all day doing something completely unnecessary that probably totally hardly exists.
So you basically use what the built-in features of whatever software.
Right, so one of the things that I showed off was Zapier or IFT last month, for instance. Those are tools that connect different programs together. So, and most things that you might want to do in WordPress can connect to them. They have extensions for WooCommerce and Gravity Forms, Ninja Forms as well, probably some other major plugins. So if there's something I can think of, like whenever someone submits a form to my website, send me a message in Slack, or I have a follow-up questionnaire that goes out when someone submits that form. Those things, they don't require me to write code. I just need to connect those different services together.
I don't really use any automation, to be perfectly honest.
For me, I'm forgetful, so they'll fall through the cracks if I don't have that.
So for instance, for me, I will have my Gravity form when it's submitted. It goes into Slack to notify me that a new potential sale is coming in, but it also goes into my Pipe Drive, so that way I can track the sale throughout. Pipedrive is a sales tracking tool, or it's not really a CRM, but it's definitely like a sales tracking tool. So you can track the progress of a sale from initial contact through won or lost. So because of the automation, I didn't have to write anything, but just kind of connecting the dots allows me to make sure that I never miss a beat.
I don't use too many automation things, but I do use some pieces of software. One of the things I use is, if we're doing that, one of the things that I use, I kind of rely on is Uptime. It's called what's it called? Uptime Robot, where it's free. You can put I think a ton of sites in there where it will give you an interval slider if you want to find out whether or not your website or your client websites are up and running, or if they go down. Really is what you really want to see. What I like about it is that it'll send you an email as soon as the site goes down. So let's say, for example, you have a monitor for every 20 minutes it goes and checks to make sure that the site is up. And if it's down, it sends you an email. What I like is that I have it set as a Slack. I integrate Slack with it, so I'll get a Slack notification on my devices if a site goes down, and then I can immediately react. So I may not be at my computer to see the email maybe per se. Maybe I'm out now, and then when we're done here, I see a notification the site may have gone down. I can react to it right then and there. So that's one thing that I enjoy using a lot. And then the other thing I also use is a service called Managed WP, because I can do my backups through there. I have for those that I don't think I have any clients in here, but my reports that you get once a month that tells you what's going on, all of that comes out here, because it's cool because it lets you white label it. So if you pay a little extra, you can do that. And so I get that, I get my backups, I get some SEO stuff that it does in there. There's a cool bunch of features that it does, but it kind of does all of that stuff without me having to worry about it. Where before, I spent hours a week checking updates, then doing the updates, or doing backups, then doing the updates, and then making sure that the site was fine, and then moving on to the next site. And now it's I don't really have to worry about that. I can focus on,
Is that
other things.
Is that a plugin?
It's a combination of plugin and service.
Right. So where it gives you a plugin to download onto your site, so that way it connects to your subscription with Managed WP. So they give you a login that you get in there and you log into. But then on your website or websites, you download their free plugin, so that way they talk to each other.
What's the name of it?
Managed WP.
There's a lot of them out there. Managed WP is by far, it's one of the most popular. I personally use another one called iThemes Sync.
What's it called?
iThemes Sync. There is one thing I wish that those uptime services would do, which would be like some sort of service to not send me false positives. In that I get those emails every once in a while from a client site that says this site is down, and by the time I receive that email, I've gotten an email 2 minutes later saying the site's back up. Because, you know, whatever thing somebody's budget. The service, the Managed WP or any of those services can be used on any one individual website. You know, you don't need to be managing dozens like we are, but it definitely, if it saves you 1 hour, that saves him 12 hours.
Yep. Yep.
Last part of my question, and I cheated, I had to do it.
We're gonna charge you for the third one.
Yeah. You switched AmpStack, you no longer use, to build your websites, so you don't build them live anymore. Why did you switch MAMP?
Well, does anyone else switch from using MAMP to using something else?
Yes.
I don't want to answer, I won't fill all the answers. So.
Go for it.
Yeah, I've actually had, it's funny, I actually had an interesting experience where I initially switched over to desktop server because of there's a free version and then there's a paid version as well, where it basically does a lot of the WordPress build process for me, so I didn't, the downside of that is when you become too reliant on it and then suddenly you have to switch back to MAMP for a particular project, you run into this problem where you forget how to do everything. And so then you're going back into looking at the document. Fortunately, WordPress is really easy to install and all that stuff. But I actually now I use Local by Flywheel, which is pretty much the same thing as desktop server, but it is actually, it's free. Their kind of like premium version is free. And eventually, at some point, if you host with Flywheel, they're actually making it a way to you can actually push directly to your Flywheel install, which is the one thing that desktop server has right now over Local by Flywheel is desktop server will actually, if you have the premium version, you can actually export, and that's the main reason I switched. Was it allowed me to export my sites a lot more easily. Where basically you put in the URL it needs to go to, as long as the you just install their plugin, and it connects to the site and it does basically FTPs everything for you, does a search and replace on your database so that it changes the URLs, it does all of that work for you. So that's the only thing I miss about desktop server. And I think their annual subscription is only like $100 a year. So it's, if you do it for one site, you've already saved enough money. Local doesn't have that, but it does have an export feature where it exports an archive and it does a lot of the same stuff. But then you have to hand that over to Flywheel for them to put it up on the server. So they're working on connecting the two so that it's a seamless one-click process, but it's just not ready yet.
All the tools that Adam was talking about, desktop server, local, MAMP, the one I showed was called Vagrant, is the one that I use. All these tools are ways to host a website on your computer so that you can work on a website without it being on your client's actual domain, so that you can build a website and then put it somewhere when you're done with it. No, I would not want to work on my client site live because I make mistakes all the time, and I would rather those mistakes stay between me and my computer and not all of my clients.
And actually, now that I think about it, one feature that Local has that desktop server doesn't is it has built-in nrock integration. So basically, what it allows you to do is you work on your local, you do your local version, and you click a button, and it creates a temporary URL for your client to see. So that way you don't have to spin up a separate staging server, push to that staging server, and do all of that work until it's ready.
Oh, that's...
Your computer has to be on though.
Yes, that is the one down, which I've learned the hard way because I've had clients that are like, the site's not up. I'm like, what do you mean the site's not up? I sent you the email with the link, and it's because I had to actually close my laptop.
Oh, that's right. You can't even see it.
So where staging is always available because it's on the server with whoever you host with, et cetera, et cetera. this is on your computer. So if your computer is not on, the client will not see it. If you're traveling to Charleston to see the eclipse and your client tries to view the website, they won't be able to see it, which we learned,
True story.
we remembered that this weekend.
Yeah, because it's not just on, it has to be connected to the internet.
Right, right.
We should do like a workshop where tell people to get Raspberry Pis beforehand and try to set one of those up on a Raspberry Pi.
That's cool.
Because you can just leave one of those plugged into your router at home.
Yeah, you can,
Set up a server.
or just build like a temporary server at home that you will get rid of the
That's
stuff
basically what the Raspberry Pi
afterwards.
does.
Yeah, I figured because that's cheap and it's a little computer on a board. It's like $35. You can buy them even cheaper, but yeah, has all sorts of cool stuff on it.
One thing I will mention about MAMP, MAMP is what I use for all my local stuff. I have used desktop server and I want to try to use local. But I have LCAP on my machine, and there's been a few times when my computer has crashed and I've been unable to get my SQL back up. And so there's a few things with MAMP that I've run into that little nuances. I couldn't get into my local environment for like 2 weeks until I figured out how to.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
I've also run into issues where both local and desktop server don't play nice with some stuff from WP Engine. It's just a weird quirk of pulling down databases and stuff like that, that the site just didn't look right, but when we started running it on MAMP, everything was fine. And it has something to do with locals based on Docker, and this whole configuration in Docker can be kind of a pain in the butt. So it really is just use what you're comfortable with, and use the tool that works best for you, and use the one that best fits the job. Because if you're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff on WP Engine, maybe use MAMP, because that might be what they prefer, and it's more closely matching their architecture. Whereas because I host everything with Flywheel, it makes sense for me to use their tool.
And I'm going to say we'll sidebar this because, as you may have noticed, we're diving really deep into all of the fun tech things. If anyone has a specific question about any of these tools or wants to start using one of them, probably Facebook or Slack.
Yeah.
We can answer
Slack is
whatever
great.
questions you have.
We're
Otherwise, we
really
go
trying to
for
push the
hours.
Slack thing because we're pretty much on it all the time.
Yeah, and this conversation would be multiple hours between all of us, you may have noticed.
Oh, now switching from MAMPs to your client. Now I ran into a problem where I built a website on a subdomain of my domain, and it happened to be secure. So when I backed it up and then uploaded it to the client, it started looking for the HTTPS. I ran into multiple problems because of that. Now, until now, I'm running into the same problem. But now, if you want to go and upload a regular MAMPs site that you've already built on MAMPs, how would you handle it when you go on a secure site of your client?
The good thing is when you're building something and you're not using SSL, which is where the HTTPS comes from, flipping the switch over to HTTPS is actually usually pretty seamless. Sometimes you run into issues where images aren't necessarily served correctly, so you have to go in and like if you've hand coded the full source, you have to go in and add the HTTPS. But there are also plugins that will help you handle that. Really Simple SSL is the one I think most of us use. So in that instance, I actually try to build everything as vanilla as possible to avoid that specific issue, and then just use Really Simple SSL, because that way you can get any kind of SSL certificate installed, and Really Simple SSL actually takes care of everything for you.
Okay, because I had a plugin that search and replace. So I searched for all the HTTPS.
Was that a plugin on your site, or was that
on the WordPress
server?
On the server.
Well, I had a problem with that.
Yeah, you can run it. You can very quickly, and it's the kind of thing that if you accidentally leave it on a live site, it's easy for someone to get a hold of and actually just completely wreck your site as well.
There's a tool that it may be the tool that you used, and it's a tool that most of us have used before, called SRDB. SRDB, Search Replace Database. The company that makes it is called Interconnect. It's like a script that you download from their site, you upload to any server. If you are going to use a search and replace tool like that, The reason I like using that one is, one, it's a standalone thing. As long as I can just upload it to a server, I can use it, so I don't need to worry about installing extra tools. Two, it has a dry run, which means you can say, here's the change I want to make, and then you do a dry run, it'll show you all the changes it's going to make, so you can determine, you know, if you messed up and typed something wrong or whatever. And then when you're done doing it, it has like a nice big button that says delete me, and you press it and it'll remove itself from the server for you.
Oh, that must be more.
Yeah, that's
Been a while since I've used
Yeah,
it.
yeah. And for me, the question of if I'm building a site, because on my domains they're all secured, and if I'm moving to a client site that isn't secured, usually my solution to that is to get a security certificate for their site.
That's another
They should
good
be
point.
using
You
one.
can get, now that you can get them for free with Let's Encrypt, just tell them, hey, do this. Usually they can do it through their host, and it requires almost no technical knowledge. And it's just better for them to have it anyway. It's better for SEO because I know Google cares about it now. So it just makes more sense for them to have one.
Your site runs faster, generally.
Chrome 60 now, if you don't have SSL, it automatically will tell you that the site is not secure and you have to ask for permission to enter the site. So once you update Google Chrome again, you will start
Last
seeing
week.
that, yeah, which it came out last week, I'm already updated, but as everyone starts to update their sites or their Chrome instances, if they're not using SSL on your site or your clients aren't, then you're gonna start getting phone calls of, my site's broken.
Yep.
No, it's not, you need SSL, and so we've been telling our clients for eons to switch to SSL, but there's still some that refuse to do it. So
And Chrome updates
now,
itself unless you tell it not to update itself, which
Right.
most people don't know how to do, so.
right, so Chrome's gonna start forcing my persistent clients that don't want it, that they're gonna have to have it.
And
Because I
Google
think
owns
it's
the
really-
world already.
Pretty much.
Not all of it, Facebook and Amazon own some of it too. Amazon, yes.
And they're all in the same club, they play golf together on Wednesdays.
But yeah, there's a lot of positive reasons to use it, and I know that's not the question that you asked, that's usually how I solve the problem, I install a security certificate for them.
How about using Dreamweaver
Dear God, no.
for WordPress?
No, well, maybe, yeah, probably.
So
Or
the
four.
biggest problem with Dreamweaver is that you're not really learning anything, and it puts in a lot of bloated code.
But it really keeps well track of your assets and organizes them well.
If you have a
For
newer
FTP,
version
you
of it.
mean?
If you have, you have
Yeah.
the cloud version.
I'm sure someone has a tool that can do that too.
You can also use FTP. I haven't used Dreamweaver since I started doing WordPress sites because, and I know they've updated it and it probably has a lot of cool features now too, but I always found it to be more for static websites, meaning that when you're writing the code for a page, it's code for that page. And WordPress itself is what you would call a dynamic website. The reason people like WordPress is you have a template that says here's what a page or here's what a post looks like, and then it goes to a database, grabs the actual text that you put on that page, and puts it into that template. So I can't, make each one of those in Dreamweaver. But the nice thing is if I decide that, now all of the titles on my page are going to be, this big and sit over here instead of down here, I just have to make that change to one file, WordPress takes care of it.
Almost the same as if you're using PHP across a specific website to call in your header.
That's where I first started doing it.
That's
Me
right, yeah.
too!
There are a lot of
Yeah.
similar tools like Beaver Builder is one of them. Divi
Elementor.
is
What is
another
that?
one.
That's another new one that is comparable to Beaver Builder. But I am all Beaver Builder. It's just someone that I work with, another agency we do overflow for, uses Elementor, so now I'm starting to get familiar with it.
Yeah. There's a bunch of tools.
Elementor and Divi, and I'm leaning towards Elementor more than Divi.
So, this is another rabbit hole that a lot of us will get down, and we could have a whole talk just on page builders.
Sure.
But when you're looking for a page builder and you're evaluating a page builder, the one thing that I tell people to remember is that you're good, at some point you may want to change. So if you're using a page builder like Divi or Visual Composer, everything is based on short codes, not on HTML. So when you're building your page, if you were to remove the theme or plugin, you're going to end up with this bracket, VC row equals whatever, close bracket, your text, and it's going to be gobbledygook. If you're using Elementor, I believe Bold Grid, I may be speaking out of turn for that one because it's so new, But Beaver Builder and Elementor definitely are using HTML and CSS. So if you remove the plugin or the theme, depending on what you're using, your text is going to look like text. It's not going to be as pretty because you're removing your styling when you do that. But at least your text is readable to Joe Schmo on the street. So that way, if there is some catastrophic something that happens and you hit the update button or something auto updates and something breaks, you don't end up with all of this shortcode gobbledygook that no one can read until you have time to fix it. It's still legible.
And
So-
if you're looking for a specific breakdown of page builders, not just the ones that you mentioned, but I can tell you, I don't know exactly when yet, but we will have 2 talks at WordCamp Orlando this year. One specifically just doing an overview of page builders, and then one specifically on Divi.
Nice.
Go to
Hey, I can
WordCamp.
talk about it now.
Yeah.
You're gonna have something on Genesis
Take a
also?
wild guess who's doing the Divi talk.
Genesis. Is there anyone talking about Genesis?
Genesis?
Not specifically,
But how many of us who here uses Genesis? So you can probably ask any of us.
So, and the other thing is, like, because Beaver Builder has a plugin, I can use Genesis Framework with Beaver Builder, and it becomes this nice mesh of, like, it really melts well together and makes a gorgeous site without having to do a lot of heavy development.
If anyone here is, because there was the whole time we've been talking about tools that we use, if anyone's completely lost by any of these or doesn't know what it is, do ask.
There we go.
So Beaver Builder, Bold Grid, Divi, all the things that Sandy was just talking about, those are generally fall under the name Page Builder. It basically is a way to, I'll say like Microsoft Word, like visually build out a page. So how we might write code to make a page look a certain way, you can maneuver things around with an editor like Word.
Or
Like,
WYSIWYG.
It's all drag and drop. So you're able to go, okay, I want a heading here, and you drag it, you drop it, you change your colors, you change your font, you change all of that, just by using drop downs like you would in Microsoft Word. And so it makes it so that if my client wants to go in and make a change to their page, they don't have to call me. They can just go in, hit the page builder button, and make all their changes. So it saves them a lot of money in the long run.
One thing I want to add on to that though is I'm a fan of Divi. When I finally moved over to that, I realized that I should be there exclusively. Now, for those of you that are out there that may be looking to do, to use a page builder, I would say, take your time, practice with them, choose one, and learn everything you can about it, and create whatever documentation that you can for your clients, so that way when you hand off the site to them, so that way they can use it and do their changes, like what Sandy's saying, because it does save a lot of time. At least that documentation and what they're going to have to do is all the same, and that makes so much more. It makes it so much more of a better experience for them, because then you can create, whether it's documentation where they can just go on your website and go to create an FAQ where they can just hit, I'm looking for this, and they can see whether it's I'm trying to start doing it a little bit more, like videos of saying exactly how to do stuff. Or at least they can follow along with screenshots and text and say, do this, now do this, it looks like this, now do that. It just makes it so much easier for them, and it saves you time. Because that's what you want, right? More time, or less time at working, and more time for them to be able to do their easier things, so then they only get you involved when they have to do bigger things that they shouldn't do anyway, because they're potentially break the site.
See, I don't have to do, I am for my organization.
For your organization. So, which is good. So the other thing I would say for you then, if your organization is looking at a builder, you should test out a few of these.
The page is
Most of these
already
have,
built, I just have to maintain it, and some gentleman here told me that part of the page that I really hate is from a Unison framework thing.
haven't heard of that one.
there's so
Well,
many out there.
I want to say is that, most of these have really good communities. Like I could say for the Divi community, it's fantastic. They've got podcasts, they've got websites, they've got videos, they've got a whole bunch of stuff out there. I'm sure Beaver Builder and some of the ones that Sandy was mentioning may do as well. But
Now
get
that I
it-
know what it is, I can go research.
yeah, research them and see which ones have a really good community for you to find information, whether it's premium or free. That's going to help you a lot.
And the other thing is, a lot of people don't think about this, But look, when you're, next time you're on Facebook, search in the search bar for your framework, the name of your framework. I can almost guarantee there's a group out there for users, for developers. There's at least 18 Beaver Builder groups, and I'm in all of them, which is crazy.
Is there a
But
Beaver Builders Anonymous?
what?
Is there a Beaver Builders Anonymous?
Yeah. 19 groups.
I'm on the 18-step program. But no, it's one of those things where it gives you a place when you get stuck to ask a question. It also gives you a place to get new ideas. So that way, you know, and it's not that you have to be on there 24/7 and constantly reading everything that's posted, but just one of those things where you just pop in when you have a few minutes, scroll through, you know, the pictures and the, you know, keyword phrases of what's being posted, see if there's anything, or if you have a question and you're in that group, you can type in, you know, a keyword to your question and search in the group itself to see if it's ever been answered. And then that way, a lot of the time you can mitigate some of, you know, your roadblocks along the way without having to pull in one of us. As much as we want your money, we want you to be able to be as self-sufficient as possible as well. So.
And I just want to expand upon that and jump on Adam's favorite topic for me to talk about, which is this has nothing to do with you learning. Well, actually, no, it does have a bit to do with you learning. All of us, we do this this is volunteer for us. You know, we are not paid to be here right now. We all learned these things at some point. At some point, we knew nothing about this, and we end up sharing with other people. When you start playing with all these, you're going to be able to share the information with people. If you're going on there to get a couple of questions answered, if you see one that you know an answer to, I'm going to push everyone to do that. If everyone answers one person's questions, I'll be happier.
So you mentioned that you all learned this at some point. Are most of you all self-taught, or do you have a background in this, education-wise? I'm curious where you started and how you.
Sure, you want to
Go down the line.
Yeah, graphic, especially graphic design.
Yeah, I started off like in art school, middle school. I've been like in fine arts, I guess you could call it, all through middle school, all through high school, and then I got a hold of a computer and I never really turned back as far as design goes. And I just dove in and just started learning, how to design, and the more I played with it, so I'm definitely self-taught. No formal training. So yeah, I've been designing for a little over 15 years now. So yeah.
So I'm actually not a website builder, but I did kind of try to start as one back in the day when, what was it, Homestead Page Builder was a thing? Yeah! Made my first Sailor Moon fan site, oh yeah. But then I took digital media at UCF, so I graduated with a degree in that, and then met David, and he's like, hey, there's this really cool thing called WordPress, and I need you to help me take over the group and make it something cool. So with his help, I entered WordPress, and somehow I found myself being a content writer and learning SEO and everything through a job I got back down in my hometown, and now I'm here.
My degree's in event management from Rosen College, so it has nothing to do with the web world. But I have a son and a husband who, well, my husband's been in the web world for 17 years, and now my son is eating up code school as fast as he possibly can. And so I kind of got sucked into the world myself, but I've been at it for 5.5 years now, and completely self-taught. I learned in one weekend. I sat down on Friday night and opened up Code Academy, which is 100% free online, took their HTML, CSS, JavaScript course all that weekend. Literally, that's all I did all weekend. By Sunday night, I launched my first website. So it is possible to just sit down. Does it take determination? Yes, absolutely. But now I own my own agency with my husband, and we homeschool our child, and we live this great life where we get to travel. So I say to anyone who wants to give it a good, fair shot, dive in and go.
Yeah, I agree. My background is really more in computer science. Went to school for it, got a degree in it, and I don't use it. When I I started off, building HTML websites. Sadly, it wasn't Dreamweaver, but it was that's what I learned. I didn't know any better. I got a Dreamweaver's book, the Dummies book, and at the bookstore, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure it out from here. But when I got into WordPress, it was at a meetup, similar to something like this, and someone was talking about it, and I was like, what's this blogging thing? I got into it and designed a blog outside of my website that was in WordPress, and my site was still in HTML. And then when I realized what was happening with it, I was like, oh, you could do all this cool stuff without really knowing essentially how to fully program these functions, right? And I was like, oh, this is great. It's gonna propel me like so much further. And when I got into it, really is when I got into this group and met these guys that were already talking about it. And so I would say you don't have to have any formal training, but you should learn as much as you can for how far you want to go with it, right? If you want to be professional in it, immerse yourself in it. If you could do it for a whole weekend, I think that's fantastic. For me, it was a creative outlet. It gave me, bigger wings to be able to do more. Yeah, I don't think you need it. And if I would have known better, I probably would have saved thousands of dollars in going to school and just, probably I would have taken, like now, I think there's more of these online courses that you can go to, right? There's more free ones now too, especially like, the Khan Academies or the Code Academies and things like that. Whereas if I had that to me, I would have paid money for those things. But I have an iron yard. Different. I'm sorry. Squirrel. But I mean, if you want to, go even more advanced, like come to these things, but then also talk to us. We can either, shoot you in the right direction, or maybe there's an online place that you can go to take it further. Like when I learned WordPress to actually build my first site, I got onto lynda.com, and now if you live in Orlando and have a library card, you can actually get a subscription to lynda.com that can teach you all of this stuff too for free. So plug there if you don't already know about that. But that's how I learned. I did like the first 15 minutes of the first class of building a website with WordPress, or building WordPress like from scratch. And I was like, I'm good. Never went back, but I was like, I'm good because now I know what I need to do.
Yeah, also if you lived in Seminole or Volusia, you also get a free lynda.com.
Yeah, a lot of counties buy into it, and if your county doesn't, you can get an Orange County library card for $25 a year?
Something like that.
Some very small amount of money per year.
Still worth it. Yeah, still worth it.
How long have you been doing this?
11 months ago, I'm actually a firefighter paramedic during my normal time, and I kind of wanted to transfer out of that career and do something else, and I kind of reverse engineered this career because I wanted to work from anywhere there was an internet connection, so I was like, oh, web developer can do that. Got a YouTube video and started pouring through YouTube trying to find out how to build sites. Went to Meetup and found you guys, and the first day that I was there, I met Damien, who told me about the Lynda thing.
Yep.
And I basically built what is going to be my next career on a library card. And I just finished a very intensive course today on building a theme from scratch. And I'm loving this new thing. It's pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, empowering, right?
Yeah. It also helps to be passionate about it. When I'm sitting at my house at 8 o'clock at night, I want to open my computer and mess around with WordPress. I mean, I think we're all maybe a little weird like that.
Yeah, my story, I actually gave a WordCamp talk about this a couple years ago, WordCamp Orlando, and it's on WordPress.tv. So if you, forget the title of it.
You can also search by your name.
Yeah, if you search by my name, Adam Soucy, S-O-U-C-I-E. It's on WordPress.tv, which is basically what WordPress.tv is we try all the WordCamp talks from around the world get uploaded. If they've been videoed, they get uploaded there, as well as some of the ones from meetups as well. So like we can send all the videos, and that way anything that we feel is worth sharing, it gets uploaded over to there. So pretty much any WordCamp talk that we've given is up there, and we'll do video for all of our WordCamp talks this year as well, for the same reason. But my story is very similar to Sandy's, very similar to yours as well. I was tired of the job that I was doing, I was working, I used to be the PR director for Orlando City. And when I transitioned out of that, I was working for one of their sponsors, the soccer store on the mall, as a sales guy. And I hated it, but I needed a job. So knowing that we had been talking about redoing the website, I was like, well, maybe I could do that for them, because I'd done a lot of work on the website for Orlando City. And I decided to go through Treehouse, was the one that I picked at the time, because it was like, this was before I found out about all the library card stuff, but it was like for $500 for a year, you could get access to all of their courses. And so I went through them. I basically quit my job, and I gave myself a month to learn as much as I could in order to get hired at an agency. And within 3 weeks, I had a site up as my portfolio, just that showed off some of the work that I did as a student. Started going out, searching through Craigslist ads, everything I found, and I found a job on Craigslist, and that's where I met Jeff. And Jeff and I worked together for what, 2 years, I think it was, something like that. And
For like 2 weeks.
and it's funny because basically, David leaving that agency is what created the opportunity for me to come in and work for that agency. So that's like the weird kind of connection, and I didn't actually meet David in person until like 6 months later. But it's this community. What I learned through Treehouse and eventually through Code School, I did some stuff on Code School, some stuff on Code Academy. All of that was great, but it gives you, it's just like going to college. You get your theory, but you have to put it into practice. So once you're actually building stuff, you learn new things every single day. Whether it's through, one of the rules that we used to have at the agency was you can't ask for help until you spent 15 minutes Googling it by yourself. And it's a hard rule to get used to, especially when you're like, but this thing needs to be done in like 45 minutes. I've got to get this done, and I don't know what I'm doing. If you spend those 15 minutes Googling, you're learning better. Because now, I know that if I'm going to ask one of these guys for help, it's because I've either already spent the 15 minutes, or I know they're going to be able to give me the answer because they've spent the 15 minutes Googling, and they're just going to shoot me a link, go, oh yeah, go here. So it's one thing to learn through those websites, and that's a great way to start, but you have to make sure you build your connections and build your community, and that's why that Slack channel, that we keep pushing it, and we're going to keep really, we're not going to let that die, because we all sit on that Slack channel all day long. And at some points I actually have to turn off the notifications because it gets to be a little bit too much, but.
Before I talk, to point out the whole community thing that I love talking about, one of the bonuses of getting involved with a meeting like this, if you plan on doing something like this for a living, or if you plan on having a lot of WordPress questions, is meeting people who can be very valuable to help you out. By that I mean, one of the people who is regularly on our Slack channel is one of the lead developers for Easy Digital Downloads and WooCommerce. So if you have a question about those platforms, he probably has an answer for it. Myself, there's other people too, but one example is good. Myself, similar-ish to Lisa, except for GeoCities and Animorphs fan sites. You know, back in the 90s.
Is it GeoCities or GeoSites?
GeoCities.
Angel Fire.
Angel
Remember Angel
Fire. Anyway, last one past 90s. Similar, I did not come from a web background. My degree is in archaeology and linguistics, which I also use basically never.
Real quick, show of hands. How many of us have degrees that we don't use?
How about no degrees?
but it's still valuable to. I think the most important thing is getting that ability to, one, sit and pay attention for a while, and the learning how to learn. You know, everyone here, we spent a lot of time of our own free time, or really quitting a job to do it, to make time to learn something. And we do not know everything. We are learning something new every day. You are, you know, either always just one step ahead or behind us. So if you ever want to do any of these things, it's not like you have to have started doing it from 10 years old or whatever.
And we all have our own like twist and turn on things, because like Adam specializes in accessibility, and he knows accessibility like crazy. Whereas me, I'm just gonna call Adam. Whereas if someone needs help with local SEO, they can come to me and, you know, heavy dev, I call David.
I like building plugins, so.
Because he's the plugin guy. So it's kind of like, you can find your rabbit hole. We all have found our rabbit hole, something that we're passionate about, something that we want to be up till midnight working on and doing and running after.
I think time for one more. I know it's a little, I don't want to keep on here too late. Let them clean.
Can I be the devil's advocate? How about MVC and ASP.NET versus WordPress?
Boom, I want to jump in really, no, actually, no, sorry. Anyone else? Okay, so there are some frameworks, there are some platforms that exist for WordPress that, I don't even want to make anyone Google them, that try to turn WordPress into an MVC. MVC is a concept of programming that if you don't know what it is and you plan on doing WordPress, just ignore it for the moment. WordPress is not built with that in mind, with that concept in mind, but there are people who come from that concept who want to keep using it in WordPress and try to form it to, I'm trying to think of a good non-coding analogy of, I don't know.
Square peg in a hole.
Yeah.
Square peg in a round hole.
Square peg in a round hole, which that square peg is perfectly fine if there's a square hole for it to go into, but since this is not a square hole for it to go into, just use the round peg. Sounds worse than it should. Point is, if you're planning on doing WordPress, I wouldn't think about that just because it's not what it's intended to do. ASP is.
I think you're opening yourself up for more risk than reward.
You're also like wasting a lot of time.
You can use MVC for things like plugins. Like when you're building, because plugins are a lot more controlled, and I don't know. I don't have the big computer science background, but
Because iOS apps also use MVC architecture.
You know, honestly, almost everything but WordPress does when it comes to major frameworks. You know, we all started building websites because we had something else that we were doing. The guy who founded WordPress, he was a photographer. He was a 19-year-old photographer who just wanted to make his blog better, show his photos without any sort of programming background, or a real, you know, like a professional programming background. Which explains so much about what the code looks like, yes. I would say don't try to reinvent the wheel when it comes to this. That's not how WordPress is. Similar to if you want to start building things in WordPress, there are so many resources that already exist, including samples of code. So if you want to start building your own themes and plugins, don't write everything from scratch unless you want to learn or you really want to do everything. There's lots of boilerplates and practice themes and sample code that you can use to get started. We all use things like a lot of us use Genesis or Beaver Builder or something else, tools that make those jobs easier because, I mean, do you want to rewrite the same code a dozen times?
But even using something like WooCommerce and as a plugin to do your e-commerce versus, say, Shopify, which is totally outside of it, there are solutions. It's about finding the proper solution for your need. It's not about trying to make this solution fit you. There are times when I'm going to tell a client they need to go directly to Shopify.
find a solution to the problem. Don't find a problem for a solution you already have.
Right. Sometimes migration is the best option.
I'm looking for a plugin. I have heard something on YouTube,
Thrive.
It's promotional and some pop-up. What do you think about it?
I hate pop-ups, but I'm
Yeah,
not
I
in
mean, they
marketing.
have different, I just,
But, so, from an accessibility standpoint,
They're bad. They're very, very bad.
wow.
I ranted. I won't repeat what I said on Twitter recently about modals.
No.
It was in all caps and it involved the F word several times.
Adam's Twitter handle.
Yeah. My Twitter's weird, so I won't promote it here. Oh no, trust me. But
Flash
yeah,
across the video screen.
modals and pop-ups. You've got two camps. One is it's a really bad user experience, and all the data supports it. Problem is you also have all this data that supports the fact that it's really good for your business. So you have to kind of decide the ifs and buts.
Talk to Saeed and he'll tell you something different.
Well, yeah, Saeed. I mean, see, that's the problem, is the people that run the companies like, Opt-in Monster, who,
Which does something similar to what you're.
Yeah, I just thought to connect it to my site and do some Facebook ads. So I thought maybe I can
yeah, that,
install that plugin.
it's unfortunate, 'cause I think Chris would probably have the best answer.
Chris
for it.
would have, yeah, my husband would have the best answer. He's a marketer, and
Okay.
Yeah.
but he's in the Slack channel, so we're gonna circle back to that.
We don't get paid for having
But
it on
what
Slack.
I'll tell you though, what I'll tell you though is when it comes to advertising and pop-ups and all of that, is it comes down to your target market.
Okay.
Because there are markets where they are really quick, and the young mom crowd
Yep.
is really quick to just hand out their email address. Put me on your newsletter now, I want the coupon, thank you. But there are other markets,
Yeah.
men, most of the time, won't give up their email address, that is theirs, and they
Yeah,
will
I'm
to you.
looking to hand out the
Fake one
coupon, you know.
So
So
that
Yeah,
might,
so
that might work.
it would probably work for your target market.
okay,
So by all means, and double check with Chris and Sandy.
sure.
They'll definitely be able to help you out.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a wide variety of tools that can do that.
Okay,
So there's, you know, similar to choosing your page builder.
maybe next
Try a few out.
Saturday going to be meetup and.
We're actually going to, on the meetup this weekend, we are building a notification bar plugin. It's not a pop-up, but it is a place to put some advertisement on your
Sure.
site. So if you want to learn how to do that,
Yeah.
I'll be teaching you some code.
You're gonna do that here?
Yeah.
Here, sorry. Ooh, last plug from me.
I don't know about
Right
it.
here,
At what
Code
time?
School at 9 a.m. this Saturday.
It is
in
on
like
the meetup
4 days.
website.
That is not early.
It is
And-
when you have to get up at like 6 to get there by
And
9.
I suppose it
Chris
is.
should be here Saturday.
Okay,
Yeah.
Show me full of vitamin C.
You know?
It
but
is
there are
on-
some other plugins, right, for that, I just.
Oh yes, yeah, no, there's many. We can show you some that work.
And there are some that work really good for one function, and there are some that work really good for other functions. So it really comes down to exactly what your end goal
Sure.
is, depends on what you want to use.
Okay.
So it's a deeper conversation.
Yeah, I just don't know really.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, because you didn't like Divi theme, and I have my site on Divi, I'm like, oh shit.
You can.
No, I have a personal vendetta against Divi, and it's because of it nearly destroyed an entire in fact, the company that Jeff and I used to work for, it nearly destroyed our entire website.
Okay.
And it was for exactly the reasons that they talked about. Of when we decided to switch over, and we decided, you know what, this isn't working. We want to get rid of Divi. I was the one that had to do all the cleanup of everything
Yeah.
and pull all that stuff out, and it took a week, and it was, to me, that's why I'm one of those people that's more, which is, it's not meant as a negative. I try to treat my job more as an artisan, so I try to handcraft everything, even though like I'm not like literally like carving code out of wood, but I try to treat it as like, I try not to use automated tools too often because I just don't trust them.
Yeah.
But that's me. It takes me longer to do things as a result, but sometimes quality,
More
for me,
secure,
quality trumps quality.
More secure.
Yeah, and that's the other reason is I know that I've written, so like if something happens with security on a site that I built, I know it's my fault, and so that way I know where to go and fix it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yep, thank you all for staying.
Yeah.
Saturday, and next meetup is September 26th. Sorry, and the reason I was able to count that out is because you mentioned something that made me think of another event. Who here blogs or is interested in blogging?
I'm gonna start blogging.
So there's an event called Florida BlogCon that Gene's involved with. That
Chris is
Chris is giving a talk, and you're not.
not me.
Are you giving a talk?
I'm not
A
cool.
lot of us are going to be there doing a WordPress
we'll be
help
there.
desk
We'll all be there.
at Florida BlogCon. It takes place at Full Sail. You can find info at flblogcon.com.
When does it happen?
Sorry?
When is that?
That's going to be on September 23rd. This is their 7th year of running it. It's an excellent event. It's geared more around bloggers and social media people.
And last year Lego was there with a huge Lego car.
Yeah, that was cool. But we also, every year, we do a WordPress help desk in one of the rooms. So, you know, between going to talks, you can come get WordPress questions answered. Chris, Sandy's husband, is giving a talk. Someone else from us is, right? know Smirkers is.
I thought Damien
I didn't.
was.
Maybe. Anyway, point is, we'll be there. It's a lot of fun. It is a separate, it's not us related event, so separate event.
Good event to go to.
But it is a great event to go to, yes.
And also just because this is relatively new, inside your WordPress dashboard, it should, because it's location based, it now gives you a list of local events. So like, you know, those like the news section, if you look in the news section now, you'll see it'll tell you when the next meetup, because we are an official WordPress group meetup, as well as when your nearest WordCamp. So it's just another way to get reminders about that information.
That's how I discovered today that Thomas has a new meetup group in Tampa.
Oh.
Because it showed my dashboard. If anyone has any additional questions, please find us on one of these many other places and join us next month. And if you have any trash, solve it.
In the bin.
I wouldn't have any more of these because I start
All the other information on Saturday.
And I'll join your Slack tomorrow. I might be doing this,
It's a useful,
yes.